policy. It says finish talking so I can destroy you. I mean, most debates are very competitive, but yeah. Okay, again, so you're saving this to your debate folder, and you're also saving the notes so that we have them for future reference. Okay, so another good meme here, because it's true, and it says freshmen, but, you know, just think of new debaters. Explaining debate to new debaters, you're gonna suffer, but you're gonna be happy about it, which is absolutely accurate. So, remember everybody, this, because you've had to sit and listen to me yap for way too many days, this is our final candy, but it's gonna be the most. So today is 4 pieces of candy. TJ, can I pick on you, but with love? Like, TJ didn't fill in all of his notes yesterday. And I was like, oh man, I gave him all that candy and he didn't even follow along all the way. But that's okay, because I still totally love you. But, everybody, I expect that you are on the notes, nothing else, and that you are fully following along. Okay? Okay. That being said, policy, its nickname is Cross-X Debate. And that makes the least amount of sense, right? Extemporaneous was extemp or ext. Original oratory is oratory or ooh. Lincoln Douglas is LD. Policy, why on earth is it CX? I'm going to wait and answer that, but that is its official acronym, just so you know. Okay, somebody hit the lights for me? Do just a little overview here. These are starting to look more familiar now that we've seen 4 of them. Well, this is our 4th.
Everybody ready? Great. Contention 1 is Brazil.
Policy debate, sometimes called cross-X debate, is a 2-on-2 debate event. Teams debate against each other. The objective of each team is to convince you, the judge, their policy is preferable. As the judge, you evaluate opposing teams' arguments and determine who most effectively argued their position. It is important to note that your role as a judge is to evaluate the competing arguments in the round. Your views on a topic and your beliefs on the ideal response to that argument should not factor into your decision. Because debaters are required to argue both sides of a topic, it is necessary for the judge to remove any personal biases when evaluating the round.
Now, I know they look a little intense here while they're debating, and that's for a very specific reason. Basically, policy, they're trying to say as much research as they possibly can, so they're reading really, really, really fast. That's one of the things that can make it tough. We'll talk more about that.
Because a speech is persuasive in nature, it's helpful to review Aristotle's 3 modes of persuasion.
Okay, so this is getting a little more familiar here.
Ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos, or ethical appeal, establishes credibility through convincing the audience on the character of the author. This is done through delivery and use of evidence in the speech. Pathos appeals to the emotions of the audience. Logos is persuasion through the use of reason or logic. In addition to the modes of persuasion, there are a number of key areas to consider when evaluating policy: argumentation and clash.
Okay, let's stop it there. That's enough of a little bit of an overview. And let's think about the topic. This looks really intense. It's actually pretty simple when it comes down to it. One thing I'm going to tell you about the topic before we even look at it is this is chosen on a national level. Unlike the Lincoln Douglas topic, that's chosen on a state level. People with speech and debate accounts vote every year. At the end of the year in May, they give them a choice of like 9 topics, and then people get to say which one is their favorite. They're all based on current events because we want to debate with stuff that's actually mattering in the world. So on your notes, it says this year's topic or resolution is basically all about, and I underlined it for you right there, boom, fiscal redistribution, which sounds crazy. I'm going to help you break it down. But it's resolved, which just means topic. So resolved, the United States federal government should substantially increase fiscal redistribution, we'll talk about that, in the United States by doing one of three things. So there are a couple of areas that policy debaters will focus on, and I'm going to help break these down. But the first one, they could focus on a federal jobs guarantee. Number 2, expanding Social Security. And number 3, providing a basic income. Now, for 13 and 14-year-olds, that is intense because y'all don't really have a paycheck. You don't pay taxes. Maybe one or two of you might have a job, but I'd be kind of surprised. And you don't really have to worry too much about, do I have enough money to survive? Because you are not an adult. You're a minor, and that is the adult in your life. That's their job to worry about this. However, this topic absolutely affects you because you're a human who has needs, and those needs usually are met through monetary ways. You need money to eat and live and survive, right? So, let's watch a couple of videos because this can seem confusing, but it really is more simple than you think. So, I want everybody in debate 1 to have your screens facing forward, just so I know I've got your full attention on the videos. I spent a lot of time trying to find really helpful ones that are easy to understand. But let's debate 1, screens facing forward. Here we go.
Taxation basically revolves around money being collected and redistributed.
Sorry, I should make sure that I say that this is explaining what does the phrase fiscal redistribution mean, because that's kind of a weird phrase. Sorry. Okay.
Taxation basically revolves around money being collected and redistributed. Realistically speaking, this means there are winners and losers, or if you will, net beneficiaries such as someone who lives on government assistance, and net contributors such as, let's say, a high-end programmer who earns a lot of money. From an arithmetic perspective, taxation doesn't seem equitable because people like the previously mentioned programmer give more than they receive. But does this mean taxation is a zero-sum game? Well, not necessarily. If wealth is not redistributed effectively, then sure, it can be considered a zero-sum game. For example, let's assume Sarah makes $50,000 per year, Rachel makes $0, and John $25,000. The simplest approach would be taking, let's say, 30% from everyone and dividing the total amount by 3. In other words, $22,500 would be collected and each person would receive $7,500. This would unfortunately be a textbook zero-sum game because for Rachel to receive money, Sarah and John have to give money without receiving anything in return. But if governments spend money wisely enough to make society as a whole better off, taxation can generate win-win situations. For example, if you earn a lot of money but there's no law and order, you will live in constant fear and your quality of life won't be great. If we move beyond the arithmetic dimension, a well-run government can provide services which increase your quality of life enough to make it all worth it. Net beneficiaries love receiving what they call free stuff, from security, education, and medical services to pretty parks, comfortable benches, and government-sponsored concerts. However, few things in our world are actually free, and there's obviously a limit to how much net contributors are willing to pay. Therefore, it's all a matter of finding the right balance between how much you make people pay and what they get in return.
Okay, so if we're going to break down really simply, the idea with fiscal redistribution is how do we make things more fair in a society? How can we make sure people have enough money for their means and what they need? And how much should the government be involved with that? And maybe they shouldn't. It's a pretty debatable topic. Maybe the government shouldn't be part of that at all. Maybe they should. Okay, so I've got another one because this topic has lots of pieces. So debate 1, again, screens facing forward. Yeah, I'll let you know when it's time. John, turn your screen around. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is going to, again, help us think a little bit more about fiscal redistribution. What does that mean? Maybe. Hold on, let me just refresh the page. That usually will fix it. Sorry, guys. Go ahead, have a second of free time on your computer while I'm trying to talk the internet into doing what I want.
Welcome to Crash Course Economics. I'm Jamie.
That was faster than I thought it would be. Okay, we're not going to watch this whole thing, but lots of it is really helpful. Policy kids that you might want to watch this one, it might be helpful. I'm going to speed it up a little bit because it is a little long, even though we're not watching it.
And I need to read help. The world is full of inequality. There's racial inequality, gender inequality, health, education, political inequality, and of course, economic inequality. Some people are rich and some people are poor, and it can seem pretty impossible to fix.
Well, maybe not. So there are two main types of economic inequality: wealth inequality and income inequality. Wealth is accumulated assets minus liability, so it's the value of stuff like savings, pensions, real estate, and stocks. When we talk about wealth inequality, we're basically talking about how assets are distributed. Income is the new earnings that are constantly being added to that pile of wealth. So when we talk about income inequality, we're talking about how that new stuff is getting distributed. The point is, they're not the same. Let's go to the thought bubble.
Let's look at both types of inequality at the global level. Global wealth today is estimated at about $260 trillion and is not distributed equally. One study shows that North America and Europe, while they have less than 20% of the world's population, have 67% of the world's wealth. China, which has more people than North America and Europe combined, has only about 8% of the wealth. India and Africa together make up almost 30% of the population, but only share about 2% of the world's wealth. We're teaching economics, so we can focus on income inequality. These 10 people represent everyone on the planet, and they're lined up according to income. Poorest over here and richest over here. This group represents the poorest 20%. This is the second poorest 20%, the middle 20%, and so on. If we distributed $100 based on current income trends, this group would get about 83 of those dollars. The next richest group would get $10. The middle gets 4. The second poorest group would get $2. And the poorest 20% of humans would get $1. Branko Milanovic, an economist that specializes in inequality, explained all this by describing an economic Big Bang. At first, countries' incomes were all bunched together, but with the Industrial Revolution, the differences exploded. It pushed some countries forward onto the path to higher incomes, while others stayed where they had been for millennia. According to Milanovic, in 1820, the richest countries in the world, Great Britain and the Netherlands, were only 3 times richer than the poorest, like India and China. Today, the gap between the richest and poorest nations is like 100 to 1. The gaps are getting bigger and bigger.
And same with people, not just countries. The difference between the richest people and the poorest people is insane. And that's what fiscal redistribution is saying, is should we take a little from the rich and give a little more to the poor to try and help? But again, that's really, really debatable. Lily, will you turn your screen forward for me? Thank you so much.
The Industrial Revolution created a lot of inequality between countries, but today globalization and international trade are accelerating it. Most economists agree that globalization has helped the world's poorest people, but it's also helped the rich a lot more. Harvard economist Richard Freeman noted, "The triumph of globalization and market capitalism has improved living standards for billions, while concentrating billions among the few." So it's kind of a mixed bag. The very poor are doing a little better, but the very rich are now a lot richer than everybody else. There are other reasons inequality is growing. Economists point to something called skill-biased technological change. The jobs created in modernized economies are more technology-based, generally requiring new skills. Workers that have the education and skills to do those jobs thrive, while others are left behind. So in a way, technology has become a complement for skilled workers, but a replacement for many unskilled workers. The end result is an ever-widening gap between not just the poor and the rich, but also the poor and the working class. As economies develop and as manufacturing jobs move overseas, low-skill, low-pay, and high-skill, high-pay work are the only jobs left. People with few skills fall behind in terms of income. In the last 30 years in the U.S., the number of college-educated people living in poverty has doubled from 3% to 6%, which is bad. And then consider that during the same period of time, the number of people living in poverty with a high school degree has risen from 6% to a whopping 22%. Over the last 50 years, the salary of college graduates has continued to grow, while after adjusting for inflation, high school graduates' incomes have actually dropped. It's a good reason to stay in school. There are other reasons that...
We'll stop right there, because there's 2 more small things. These are small. But you kind of can't understand the rest of this topic without these 2 things, and for kids your age, you might not have really run into these ideas before, which is why I have some videos to explain.
Excuse me, would you like some free money? Excuse me, would you like some free money?
Sorry, I should say. So the idea of this one is a phrase called universal income. This is one of the things that policy kids might have to argue about. Universal income. Okay.
Free money?
I want free money.
Free money?
I can't believe some people choose not to
It's
stop.
free. You can take some for your friend.
Okay, thank you.
You like some free money, sir? Okay. Wow, we've got a lot of takers here. Handing out free money sounds like a pretty radical idea, but it's actually an economic concept gaining a lot of traction around the world. We're talking about universal basic income.
Universal basic income is pretty much what the name suggests, an income for everyone in the form of a cash transfer, no strings attached. Finland is among a handful of countries experimenting with universal basic income as a way to address unemployment in the country. Meet our fictional character, Lena. She works in a salmon factory in Finland. Then an economic downturn hits. People can't afford to buy as much salmon, and Lena loses her job. Under the Universal Basic Income Scheme, Lena would get around $650 a month from the government. She can use that $650 to cover living expenses while she looks for a new job. But even once she gets a new job, she would continue to receive the cash.
A key feature of the universal basic income is that you can spend the money however you like. So in the Finland example, you could take that $650 and spend it on about a third of the month's rent here in Helsinki, or you could spend it on 100 cans of smoked herring and 26 bottles of red mulled wine mix. We'll take 26 of these, please.
The idea of handing out cash to every citizen isn't new. Philosopher Thomas Paine proposed the idea of payments to every person all the way back in 1797. Martin Luther King Jr. fought for a guaranteed income in the 1960s, and even free market champion Milton Friedman endorsed the negative income tax, similar to basic income, as a way to reduce welfare costs and bureaucracy. But lately, tech titans in Silicon Valley, like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, are some of the biggest advocates of the idea.
They argue a universal basic income could provide a cushion to an estimated millions of people who could lose their jobs if they're replaced by automation or by robots.
Hello? It's clear robots are already changing the future of work. Some in Silicon Valley say universal basic income could give workers an opportunity to retrain for today's workforce. Other advocates say a basic income would alleviate poverty and help address growing income inequality across the developed world. It could give people freedom to start their own business or flexibility to pursue creative interests. The idea has support across the political spectrum, from libertarians who say it would simplify the existing social welfare state to socialists who want to redistribute wealth for the lower and middle class.
Keep it up.
Finland isn't the only country experimenting with universal basic income. Other trials are underway in the Netherlands, Kenya, Canada, and the United States. But not everyone is crazy about the idea. Critics say universal basic income could actually disincentivize people like Lena from getting another job if they know they're getting paid not to work.
And of course, there's the big fat question of how to pay for universal basic income. If every person here in Finland got that $650, it would cost the government more than $3.5 billion per month.
That number would be in the trillions of dollars per year in the United States, where the population is much bigger. And labor economists argue basic income would need to be a lot more than $650 to have a meaningful impact. Research from the OECD shows that if the existing system of social and unemployment benefits was eliminated or reduced to pay for a basic income, poverty could actually increase. Other critics say there's no reason that people who are already well off should be getting more cash from the government.
So it's not looking like free money is going to become the norm for everyone anytime soon.
Super debatable. Okay, last video, and then we really will move on. So stick with me. So Social Security is something that you guys, I would be shocked. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Social Security. Wow. Okay. Oh, more than I thought. Okay, cool. But it is part of this topic. So here's a brief explanation for those of you who don't already know. Think nice thoughts about technology. Come on, we believe in you. Don't do this to me, internet. Yay. Okay.
How does Social Security work?
The government wants to make sure that you have at least some income after you retire. So if you've worked for 10 years or more and paid your Social Security taxes, which typically come out of your paycheck, you'll get Social Security retirement benefits. When you're ready to retire, the Social Security Administration takes your 35 highest paid years and plugs them into a formula that determines your monthly benefit.
Does everyone qualify?
If you spent a combined total of 10 years doing work for which you paid Social Security taxes, you qualify. You can start collecting as early as age 62. Though the longer you wait, the higher your monthly benefit. If you wait until you're 70 to collect, you'll get your maximum monthly benefit. If you become disabled before you reach age 62, or before you work for 10 years, you may still qualify for Social Security disability insurance.
Got it. Those monthly payments will really help me.
That's the idea. Social Security was never intended to replace your salary or to be your sole income. It was meant to help supplement your retirement income. To learn more, go to aarp.org/Social Security.
So, now that I've helped you wrap your brain around some of the more complicated aspects of this topic, these are, we'll simplify this, so go ahead, get ready to give me a possible affirmative argument on your notes, debate one. Go ahead, yep, screen facing you, let's get ready to take a note. It says a possible affirmative argument. So the first one could be, okay, the United States federal government, they should adopt this idea of a universal basic income, which is what Finland is experimenting with, and they should give everybody in the United States who's an adult trying to survive, they should give them $1,000 a month. So that is a possible affirmative argument that if you did policy, you might try and argue for. Okay, super debatable. There's definitely a negative to that. Another possible argument is that the United States federal government should increase fiscal redistribution, so taking money from some people to give it to others, by adopting what's called Social Security 2100. This is a real thing that is kind of being played around with. It is the idea that people who are of retirement age, so 62 or older, that their payment from Social Security, which they've been paying for, right? They have money taken out of their taxes, this happens to me, money taken out of their paycheck, and it goes into Social Security, and then they get payments back when they've retired, but a plan could be that that payment needs to go up for them to be able to actually live. So they need to get $360 more dollars for all of the 65 million people who are getting Social Security benefits. So either one, simplify it, right? You could literally just written down like universal basic income, everyone gets $1,000. That would have been fine for a possible AF argument. What questions do we have so far? I know it's early in the morning, but I hope this is sort of at least a little bit making sense. That it's about money, right? And it's about how can we make sure everybody can be okay. Debate 2, feel free, like if you have things you want to interject, please do. Okay, here's possible neg arguments. We have to have both sides, otherwise it's not a good topic. So this is your next blank, it says a possible neg argument. So, neg might try and say, yeah, basic income, that's all good. And you might want to try and argue that everyone should get $1,000, but if people are getting $1,000, why would they work if they're just getting money automatically, right? So that is something you could debate. Another argument, and this one comes from the LA Times, is that sometimes Social Security payments go to people who don't need it. So for example, if you were a millionaire and you retire and you had been paying into Social Security, you get larger payments because of how much you were taxed, and that's the money that you put into it. So you might try and argue, we shouldn't be increasing the amount of money that people are getting, because some people who are getting that extra money do not need it. They already have plenty. So it's really interesting. Okay. Now, I'm going to give everybody a coin, because we're going to stop talking about the topic, just like yesterday. You got to understand the topic before we can do anything else. But now we're going to just talk about policy specifically, because the topic changes every year. So, this is your next blank. It says, the AF, and it's underlined. They make a plan to solve the issue. And then there's another blank. And they have to defend the topic. So policy is called policy for a reason. The idea is we're kind of pretending to be mini lawmakers. We're pretending that we have this idea of a plan that could fix problems that we could give to the government and say, hey government, you kind of aren't doing a good job, so I fixed your problem for you. Here's my plan. That's gonna fix your problem. Do this plan, boom, everything's better. But when you're AF, you also have to defend that year's topic. So they have to do two things. They make a plan and they defend the topic. Make sure you get both parts of that, everybody. And then your next blank, obviously, it's underlined here. So the neg does the opposite. The neg not only is going to try and destroy the affirmative's plan by pointing out the flaws, they also are going to attack the topic itself. So AF makes a plan, defends the topic. Neg attacks AF's plan and attacks the topic. Questions? Can I move on? Did I give you enough time? Okay, I'll wait for just another second. AF has a plan, they defend the topic. Neg attacks the plan, they attack the topic. Okay, so this is your next blank. Policy is a team of two competing against another team of two. It's underlined. Look at the underlined stuff, guys. So this can be really, really, really great, because if you have a good partner, it's double the people doing all of this really tough research. But if you, unfortunately, have a partner who chooses not to work as hard as you, or you have a partner who doesn't care as much as you, or you have a partner who decides decides to just give up halfway through, I'm saying these things because all these things have happened in the past, it really messes up your experience in debate. And so if you're thinking about doing policy, you have to very, very, very carefully think about your partner. You have to think and be strategic and ask yourself, do I actually trust this kid enough to actually be my support? Or do I think that I'm just going to have to be dragging them through the mud because they're not really going to try that hard? Yeah. You sure? Okay. Clarification is great. So if you need anything, please actually say it. Okay. So one thing you have to know, your partner has to be in this class for debate 1. It is impossible to do policy and not have your partner be in this class because you have to talk through so much stuff constantly that it doesn't work for your partner to be like in 5th period, okay? Also, it really does. I try and make a big deal out of it every year, and then some years I don't feel like I do enough of a good job. Sometimes I've had it happen where like we get through like 20 class periods, and that's the point where someone's like, nope, I'm giving up on this, which is super, super unfair. So if you think about doing policy, and you're thinking about partnering up with somebody, you should be having a conversation of like, are you actually gonna stick with this? Are you making a commitment? Or are you gonna give up on me halfway through and leave me in the dust? Because that's not cool, yo. Okay, there's a very easy time limit song. And unlike Lincoln Douglas yesterday, Lincoln Douglas, remember how it was all kind of scolumpus? The time limits were 4, 2, 5, 2, 2, 3, 2, which is not a clear pattern. But unlike Lincoln Douglas, there is a very clear pattern, and then we do jazz hands at the end. So there are 4 sets of all of these numbers. 4 sets, because it's a team of 2 competing against a team of 2. So we've got 5, 2, 5, 2, 5, 2, 5, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, jazz hands. Stand up. I'm gonna make you do it. It's really easy, but stand up, debate 1, let's wake up your brain. Willie, stand up. Scared, stand up. Here we go. Connor, stand up. We'll wait for you. I know this is dumb, but do it, because remember, I'm giving you 4 pieces of candy. So participate so I can give you 4 pieces of candy. Okay, get your 5s and your 2s ready. Okay, here we go. 5, 2, 5, 2, 5, 2, 5, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. Jazz hands. Do it one more time. 5, 2, 5, 2, 5, 2, 5, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. Jazz hands. Okay, now it's stuck in your head. Sit. Okay, and the next idea here is what happens during all of those 5 2s and all of those 3 3 3 3s? It looks like a lot, but it's really easy. So, first of all, what does the C in these time limits, what does the C stand for? Let me get my pointer. Constructive. John gets an extra piece of candy. Good job, John. Okay? And it says it right here. And in the constructive block, we're doing what with our arguments? Building them. Okay, so we've got, why would we have an A, you guys? What's A for? So yell it out. AF. And what would be the N? Nope, what would be the N? You were 1 step ahead, that's okay, yeah. So we've got AF, constructive, 5 minutes. They write this before the tournament. Then CX is what, everybody? Cross-examination, yep. Notice how much cross-examination there is. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why policy is called cross-examination. It's just because there's so much of it. So AF gets attacked. Then we've got what? What is the N? Neg. And what do they do here? What's the C? What's the C, guys? Constructive. They're building their argument, so they write that before the tournament, and then they get attacked. Then the other partner talks, because there's 2 people on the affirmative side. And then they get attacked. And then the other partner talks, because there's 2 people on the other side, and then they get attacked. Now, rebuttals, what do we do with the rebuttals? Attack. We're attacking in rebuttals. None of these can be pre-written. You don't know what arguments your opponent's going to make. You can strategize and try and predict, but you don't know for sure. So all of these are under pressure. You have to hope that you know enough about the topic to be able to fill in this time. And you can also, this is when you can use your prep time. Every team gets 3 minutes of prep time. So look at this, guys. The smartest strategy is to save 1.5 minutes of prep time before this speech, and then the negative would use their other 1.5 minutes of prep time before this speech. And same with AF. 1.5 minutes before this one, 1.5 minutes before that one. And while your opponents are using their prep time, guess what? You also get extra prep time with them. So, the rounds or the debates are long because when you do this math, if you add it all together, they are 40 minutes. What usually happens though, you'll see kids who will give up some of this time, like they'll do like a 3-minute speech, or maybe they'll only do a 1-minute speech. And remember, you are only talking for total, what, it would be 10 minutes, so, right? Because then other people are talking for the other time. So everybody has their times they talk, but added up together, these are the longest debates. Total is 40 minutes. What questions do we have about how the time would work? See how it's kind of easy though, because we did like all the hard lifting yesterday with Lincoln Douglas. Okay, so let's make sure everybody got the answers on their notes, because I think that those were a lot of the notes, so let's just check really fast. Although you guys are getting so much better at following along. So policy is a what of two? Right here, guys. Team of two competing against another? Team of two, good. CX stands for? Cross-examination, good. That's where you're attacking, you're trying to make them look bad. The constructive block is to what arguments? Build. The blank block is to attack arguments? Rebuttal block, good. So, this is the next idea, I think, that one of the benefits of having so much cross-examination is having extra prep time. So can I just steal my policy teams? Because you guys are a team, and then wait, are you doing policy, but were you planning on doing it with somebody in debate 1? Okay, so come on up, guys. I'm gonna use debate 2 for this. Come on down. Policy kids. Yeah. And then who were you thinking that you wanted to be partners with? Or you were just gonna wait, like you were gonna wait? Okay, I'm just gonna steal Natalie because she's on the end and she can get up here. So, Natalie, come on this side. Okay, so let's pretend that we're having a debate. So when you come on a little bit closer, when you are not about to talk, then you have prep time. So let's say that Marcus just gave his speech. Natalie is gonna attack him for 2 minutes during cross-examination, which means Natalie's partner has extra prep time. She's gonna fill in as much of the cross-examination time as she can so that her partner can be frantically preparing his next speech. He gets extra prep time built in. And same, while Marcus is answering Natalie's questions while she's attacking him, his partner also has extra prep time while his partner is filling in the time for him. You guys can all go sit back down. Thank you very much for letting me drag you up here. So that's your next answer, everybody. That cross-examination, if you do it right, ends up being extra built-in prep time. Put it on your notes, people. It says the benefit of having so much cross-examination is extra prep time. Okay, so I have a demonstration with solo cups because they won't break things. But I have to tell you about a story about a friend that I have in debate. His name is Mr. Simmons. Mr. Simmons used to be the Mount Jordan debate coach. And Mr. Simmons and I were real life friends because we went to the same university, University of Utah, and we randomly became friends because we both happened to go on a study abroad to London. And we were real life friends. And then we both grew up and got jobs, and our jobs happened to be in the same school district, and we both just happened to teach debate, and then we happened to be competitors. And he's not a debate coach anymore because he's also a band teacher. But Mr. Simmons, because his classroom was the band room, used to do what I'm about to do with chairs. He literally threw chairs across the room to show this in a really cool, dramatic way. I can't do that because I don't have the same kind of setup as a band teacher. So I'm gonna do this with, somebody get me the pony head. I'm gonna do this with cups. And then we'll talk about, but basically the idea here, it's on the shelf of weird stuff, the pony head. The idea here is one side has to build arguments, and the other side has to attack those arguments. So I'll kind of do it over in this empty spot. So, if you do policy, I will help walk you through these things. I'm gonna throw a couple of terms at you. I don't expect you to remember them. I do expect you to try and focus. But if you do policy, I'll help you. Okay, so one of the first things that the affirmative side has to do is they have to prove what's called significance. This cup is significance. My friend Mr. Simmons did this with chairs, okay? This is the first part of our foundation. I have to prove that it matters. Like, why does it even matter enough to debate this? Then, affirmative has to prove what's called harms. So this is part of their foundation. They're building a foundation. They have to prove that something's being hurt. Otherwise, why do we need your plan? Why do we need your ideas? This one looks fancy. It's not that hard. But this one is called inherency. Yeah, let me make a simple comparison. We all get zits sometimes. It's just part of being a human. You know how they'll just fix themselves eventually? Like if you wait enough time, they will eventually go away. That's the idea with inherency. Some problems fix themselves. Some problems don't just magically fix themselves. So affirmative has to prove that this is not going to magically go away, that we need their ideas because they're not going to fix themselves. Then they give their plan. So after they prove all these things, these are their foundation, now we're ready for their plan that will fix the problems. Then we have what's called solvency, where they have to prove that their plan actually fixes issues. They'll be like, hey, there's like 65 million Americans having this problem. We have this plan, and it solves that problem for 65 million Americans. Boom! We should win. And then the last thing is what's called topicality. They have to stay on topic. Indian Hills loves not staying on topic. You have to talk about the topic that we just spent so much time talking about. You have to actually discuss fiscal redistribution. So, affirmative does all of this work. They spend all this time. Imagine this with chairs, guys. They have to use a bunch of research to prove all of this stuff. And then neg comes along, this weird pony head. Imagine that this is neg. This is neg with all of their research. And neg stands up and is like, hey, guess what, F? Boom! Yay! So wouldn't that be cooler if it was a bunch of chairs, though? It's so much more dramatic. We'll just leave it. It's okay. But neg tries to take down everything that affirmative spends so much time building up. And in policy, I'm pretty sure this is your next blank. What's the next blank, guys? What does it say? Okay, so all of those things together are called the stock issues. Put it on your notes. All of those things together, significance, harms, inherency, plan, solvency, topicality, those are the stock issues. Okay, we're going to move on. If you do policy, I will help you. This is your next blank. So, in policy, it says spread equals. It's an acronym. It stands for speed, read. Speed, read. I'm going to show you an example of this. It's going to freak you out. That's okay. I want you to know what you're getting into. Okay, so now that I've freaked you out, this doesn't really happen a lot. Kids, the better kids will try and read fast. However, it is a much bigger deal in high school than it is in middle school. The strategy is pretty debatable here. On one side, the strategy is maybe Nick is my opponent and I want to destroy him, so I throw 35 arguments at him because I read insanely fast. And if he doesn't respond to all 35, I could say that and be like, hey judge, he only responded to 14. I win. Some judges will agree with you. The downside of spreading or speed reading, or sometimes also called just spewing, right? Just all the research. The downside, what if the judge can't understand me? Right? It's not a good debate. If I can't read with enough emphasis and enthusiasm that my opponents can understand me and that my judge can understand me, you're not going to win. So I actually highly recommend that you don't spread or spew, that you don't do the speed reading. You can read fast, but you gotta be intelligible. Exactly, no one can understand that. It's just a bunch of garbage, right? Okay, so It happens, but definitely not at that level. But I want you to be aware that if you do policy and you fall in love with it, like some of our debate 2 kids, and then you want to go on and do policy in high school, this is something you have to deal with. Okay, moving on though. So this is the next blank. It says the novice policy debaters use the blank and blank from the UDCA. That's what your notes say. So the UDCA is an acronym that stands for Utah Debate Coaches Association. I said that weird. And what that means is we have a bunch of people in Utah who do a lot of work to make your life easier in policy. So they actually wrote a bunch of speeches. When you're a novice policy debater, which means you're brand new, I will literally hand you a speech and you are supposed to use it for your first tournament. You don't even write your own speech for the first tournament. Also, there is tons of research. So that is a benefit. Policy is really hard, but there is a ton of stuff out there to make it easier on you. Okay, here's the tough stuff. There is a lot. I do not want anyone getting into policy, because it's happened in the past, where kids are like, yay, I get to work with a partner, I'm gonna do that one. And then they don't realize how hard it is. So, I do expect that you're staying with me, and you're doing great, you guys. Keep with me for just a couple more minutes so I can give you lots of rewards. If you do policy, you're gonna have homework. Hands down. Marcus, I think I told this before, right? But like Marcus was really good at this. He cared enough to actually want to try and do well. So he would spend hours and hours and hours at home, not because it was necessarily required, but because he chose to. He would email me, we would work through issues, and he did really well because of all that work. But you won't do well in policy if you never end up doing any homework. Number 2, it usually takes more than 1 year to get successful, unless you are crazy determined and put in a bunch of extra work. But if you really want, somebody else is trying to get on my airplane. If you really want to win in policy, you and you're an 8th grader, maybe don't do policy because you might not actually end up winning your first year. Hold on, I'm gonna kick them back out. Okay. Then number 3, once it pulls back up, says sometimes partnerships fail. And I told you that, right? Sometimes absolutely partnerships just straight up fail and do not work. You guys have the notes pulled up on your end too, so while I'm fighting with airplay, go ahead and look at the notes on your sides of things. Number 4 is if we don't end up having a lot of policy teams in first period, you might end up just debating the same kids during class over and over and over and over. Sometimes we get lucky. We might end up having like 6 policy teams. That would be great. But if we only have 2, that means you're just constantly going against the same people all the time. Okay? Then, number 5. Because there's so many arguments, it's so much extra you have to be prepared to attack and defend. And number 6. Technically, there's a lot that's already done for you, but everybody else in the state of Utah has that same stuff. So if they're smart, they prepare for it. Number 7. It is so much reading. And the reading is high school level reading because that's the UDCA, the Utah Debate Coaches Association. It's a high school level group. You basically have to have research for everything in policy, and some kids love that, some kids hate it. Number 9 is super, super important. I only taught you guys the basics in this last hour, but there's probably at least 15 more lessons I have to give to just the policy kids before you are ready to actually compete. So there's a lot extra. Number 10, almost the entire Indian Hills team does policy. The Indian Hills coach, Mr. Pulsifer, he did it himself in high school. So a lot of times that's kind of what he pushes kids to do. And same as yesterday, I didn't change it, sorry, this was last year's topic. I am an expert in policy. I know strategy like nobody's business. I have had, I think to date, it's 5 different teams win the state tournament. I absolutely can coach you to win. However, you are going to be an expert about the topic more than I am. I know the strategy, but the topic changes every year. Last year it was about NATO. This year it's about fiscal redistribution. Okay, now, your notes say, tell me 2 great things about policy. So now that I've hopefully sufficiently scared you into making a smart decision, there are so many great things about policy. I want you to pick 2 of these, debate 1, and put them on your notes. So number 1, because it's the toughest, if you win in policy, it is way more prestigious. It's more brag-worthy because it is way harder. Number 2, the speeches are pre-written, like I said. Number 3, you don't have to memorize the speeches. You're reading off your screen. Number 4, some kids need a challenge. Some kids are bored in school all day, every day. They just aren't being challenged. Everything is too easy. And this is the time, like I've had a lot of kids get obsessed with policy because for the first time in school, they're finally being challenged. Debate 1, just a gentle reminder, the only thing on your screen should be the notes. So like 6 of you who don't have the notes, switch back. Okay. There are so many resources. That's a great thing about policy. Basically, most of the kids in the United States who do policy, they share their research with each other just to support each other because it is kind of tough. Number 8, I need to update it because this was since last year. We've had more winners, but we've won the state tournament to date. It's actually 5 times. I know what I'm doing. I can help you. You can also be crazy proud of yourself. It is really truly, it feels like $1 million if you win in policy. And that being said, this is your second to last blank, everybody. So look at the bottom of your notes, switch to your notes, and it says anyone is capable of doing policy debate. Truly, I've had kids who aren't full English speakers. I've had kids who were maybe in the special education program in elementary school, and maybe they're not super confident. I have had everyone do policy. You could do it and be successful, but you have to be willing to work really hard. That's those blinks. Anyone could do policy, but you have to be willing to work really hard. Okay? And the last thing, this sounds really harsh, and I don't mean it meanly, but I just cannot stress this enough. Do not do policy if you cannot come to after-school debate. So, if you want to do policy because you want a partner and you want to be challenged and you want the most bragging rights, yay, but you literally do not have my permission to do policy unless you can commit to coming to after-school practice every Wednesday starting in 2 weeks, okay? Every Wednesday, that's the blank. Do not do policy. Last year, there were people who didn't take me up on that. So because they did not follow that rule, I have to change things this year because it really does affect you so much. I will kick you out of doing policy. If you don't come to after school practice, I will force you to switch to one of the other types of speech you picked. Okay. That being said, I want to just, because part of what I do with policy is I try and scare you enough so that you know what you're getting into. But I also really, really, really love policy. It is so much fun, even though it's a lot of hard work. I also want to give the perspective of 5th period. So I have 2 debate classes this semester. We have, I think, 6 policy kids in 5th period. They have been chanting when I've been teaching extemp and oratory and LD. They're in the back, and they're constantly like, policy, policy. Kids who love policy love it deep down in their bones. And I know that, 1st period, it's hard, so I'm not judging our current policy kids. But I'm just saying, you guys haven't seen the enthusiasm. I think in 5th period, so many 5th period kids are going to do policy because of the policy kids who are like, policy! So anyways, I don't know if that's going to change the decision for anybody. Sorry, you've been so patient, yes.
How long do you practice is that?
You got to come to the whole practice if you do policy. If you do LD, you could come to half the practice. But policy, it's from 3 to 4 every Wednesday, okay? Yes.
I didn't get spread.
Yeah, so I was gonna say this to everybody. So spread is speed read, but I want all of you to lean over to your neighbor right now if you have any blanks on your notes. Okay. So yeah, spew and spread are synonyms. So yeah, spew and spread is just speed reading. Yeah, speed reading. Okay? Everybody go turn in your notes. Now, you all have homework, but it's not actually homework you have to turn in. You all have homework. You have to go home tonight. And you have to basically just in the back of your mind be like, okay, which event do I actually want to do? Because you have to decide tonight. Yep. So remember, extemp, 4-minute speeches after 20 minutes of prep. It's all about current events. Oratory, 6 to 8-minute speeches, pre-written and memorized about any topic you want. Lincoln Douglas, debate 1-on-1 about, you would think I would remember, it was about immigration this year. It changes, so I'm always messed up. Policy, team of 2 versus team of 2, about fiscal redistribution. Those are your options. Now, while I'm giving you candy, debate 2. This is a good time for you to come and start like bothering debate 1. Not really, but to be like, hey, I think you would make an awesome LD or be on LD. I think you should be policy, right? This is your time. Also, debate 1, go ask them questions. If you really want an insider's perspective and not just the teacher telling you what I think you should do, go ask them while I pull out candy. Okay? So turn in your notes. Debate 2, come and answer their questions. Okay.
Don't do policy.
Do policy.
Don't do it.
What's
better than
We're better.
We're better.
No, what do you guys?
Do you know anything about the topic?
Because it
So LD is Grayson and Hank, who are not doing a good job coming and mingling with debate 1. Go mingle. Oratory is Chloe and Aiden. Okay.